Hello and welcome to Root Causes, the PKI and Security podcast where a pair of industry veterans talk about all matters digital certificates and PKI. I'm Tim Callan, Chief Experience Officer at Sectigo, and I'm here with Jason Sirocco, Senior Fellow at Sectigo. So, Jay, I recently attended the Etsy PQC Summit. And one of the things that struck me while I was there, this is something we knew, but I really had started thinking about it, is we are moving from an era of what is more or less complete cryptographic homogeneity for our entire lifetimes,
Yes.
essentially, since you and I were little kids.
Yes.
Into an era where there will always be a diverse set of algorithms. If you think about it, right, the NIST competition has yielded one KEM and 3 digital signature algorithms. 3. The round 4 candidates, there are 3 remaining round 4 candidates. Their KEMs, according to Dr. Dustin Moody, who was just at this conference, he probably thinks all 3 of them are eventually going to be approved. So we'll have 4 KEMs. We have 3 DSAs. We have the on-ramp, which is considering another 40 DSAs, surely some of which will become approved DSAs. We might be sitting in a world where we have 4 KEMs and 7 signature algorithms, as opposed to 1 and 1, or 2, I guess, and 1. What does this mean?
Let's back up. Let's go back to the days when we were kids.
Yeah.
Because boy, it was fun. We were spoiled brats with the monoculture, right, of everything RSA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And super small, bit lengths for keys.
Yeah.
Super easy, such well understood provisioning processes, and you could depend on it,
Yeah.
right? RSA 2048, just go to town.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody who talks about this stuff, nobody talks about it.
Went without thinking, yeah.
Exactly. Even though we could have entire podcasts on, should we be moving to ECC en masse? Right? And so, but let's get into this diversity issue. What are some of the good and bad reasons, the good reasons to do diversity and the consequences?
So a few of the good reasons. First of all, and this is very explicit, is eggs in more than one basket.
Absolutely.
We're learning that's the hard way, right? Because all the eggs are in one basket, and all of a sudden the basket's no good, and this is a problem.
And let's make it clear:
right?
The eggs have been very tilted to one direction, which is lattice based,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And that's scary.
And that's what the on-ramp's about. Part of what the on-ramp's about. Yeah, and so getting your eggs in multiple baskets is certainly one. Another one, though, is there's this sense of right algorithm for the job.
Right algorithm for the job.
And there's a lot of discussion about this, well, under these circumstances, you'd use this algorithm. If you don't care at all about key length, this is a real great algorithm, but the key lengths are ridiculously long. So as long as key length is irrelevant, this is a good choice. However, if you're bounded on that, then it's not a good choice. And that kind of thing goes on a lot now in terms of how people discuss these algorithms. That's part of the reason that we're going to have such a variety.
So right now, TLS 1.3 handshake.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a proper session on that later during these Toronto sessions, Tim. Part of the handshake is actually an agreement on the cipher suites that are available.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows for more than RSA. It allows for, by the way, the public certificate that's available is actually ECC based, and so therefore let's use that. Terrific.
Sure.
We're going to see a future of cipher suite negotiation in handshakes that are going to be far more complex And it isn't going to be just a guaranteed, it's one flavor. It's either vanilla or chocolate.
Mm.
Well, now you're going to have tiger tail and you're going to have all kinds of flavors, which may not apply.
Yeah.
And the handshake is going to have to be like, no, I don't do that. I can't handle that because I'm a legacy system. I can't handle that bit length. But then there's, Tim, another one on that, which is for the first time ever, and you just touched on it, but let's hit it. The reason why we're bringing this up on this podcast is because you as an enterprise might have to be making decisions
Right.
about which math do you want to use
Right.
that is suited to your use case.
And that is so just absent from our current processes, tools, education, and culture, right?
It's never been done.
When you go to IT school and you get your IT degree, one of the things they tell you is you're going to use RSA. And you go, oh, I'm going to use RSA. And you memorize the letter R, then the letter S, and the letter A, and you put that in the test and you pass the test. And there's just no concept up and down, wall to wall of choosing a cryptographic algorithm, and suddenly we're going to have to all become mathematicians or cryptographers. We're going to have to start to say, well, okay, because of the circumstances, I think this is the right one to choose. Is that our future?
No, I don't think it is. And I don't, because I think it's unrealistic to ever expect that.
Right.
So I'm going to go back to something that Bruno Couillard said during one of our previous audio podcasts, and that was the analogy of the panic button being hit with PQC is going to take, it's more like a pandemic, where it's going to take 3-4 years to get out of it. And part of what people are going to have to go through as part of the process, now he was talking very specifically about swapping hardware HSMs and things like this. This is a part of it. And part of it is you, as an enterprise, are going to have to make decisions on a per use case, a per cryptographic algorithm per use case basis.
Okay.
You're not going to do it on your own. You're going to do it, and this is what I had in my notes, was security partnership is going to be even more important than ever. In other words, Tim, one of our old sayings that we used, don't roll your own crypto.
So
how about don't choose your own crypto?
So my technology providers have to have the expertise to make good choices here, and then I will use their choices.
Let me make a real world example.
Okay.
And I'm not being a salesperson, but I have to use this as an example. You would go to a Sectigo with hey, I have a private trust use case. I want to set up a private certificate authority and issue post-quantum certificates for authentication or some other thing. And I don't know I don't know now about my certificate profile in a post-quantum world. I don't know which algorithm I really should be using.
And I get that in the case of like the managed PKI provider, that makes perfect sense. I wonder, is there also like when I'm setting up my work streams in public cloud, am I having cryptographic algorithms either recommended or handed to me? When I'm using a security fabric, am I going to have cryptographic algorithms handed to me? When I'm doing ITSM, am I choosing my crypto? Like, is it sitting in all those places too?
Well, there it is, Tim. All of a sudden, the value add of private certificate authorities, the diversity of value you're getting from your platform becomes very stark. And all of a sudden, I'm not saying the public clouds aren't going to hold your hand to some degree or offer education or something, but if you're setting up something that's permanent or very important, my goodness, the chance of screwing it up are high. Here's a second point that ties a lot of this up and includes what you just said, which is what happens, Tim, if one of these algorithms becomes deprecated, but you chose it? You built your whole system around it. Here's the mistake I predict people are going to make.
Okay.
You're going to build a bespoke web application on a microservices architecture on one of the public clouds. Hallelujah. And it's post-quantum, and you're so proud of yourself. And you should be. The problem is, I bet you, because of constraints on time and resources, people are going to hard code specific cryptographic algorithms into post-quantum cryptographic algorithms into their application.
Absolutely. For sure.
For sure. And what happens if, don't forget, this
Right.
diversity of PQC algorithms.
So then that's not going to be crypto agile.
And there's my point number 2, Tim. So point number
Mhm.
1, security partnerships with a vendor who actually knows what they're doing becomes more important than ever. And point number 2 is crypto agility,
Yeah.
no longer an option.
Yeah, but that's real bad.
That's really bad.
You almost have to say it's not acceptable to say crypto agility no longer an option, right? But then that's hard because what we talked about before, there will be use cases where you're going to, at least certain algorithms will just be plain out of the consideration set.
Your choice of cryptographic algorithm will not be based on your ability to know whether or not a deprecation event will happen in a short period of time. And I guarantee, if you have not thought about crypto agility,
Yeah.
your application will not survive that event.
Right. And you see where people, again, I take this all the way back to, we don't really have a culture of thinking about crypto agility because in the past it was always the same and it was really kind of unquestioned. And now all of a sudden we're going to be moving into an era where it is always evolving and where there is always choice and where those choices have authentic consequences. And not even necessarily like a got it right, got it wrong kind of choice. It could also be just a trade-offs kind of choice. There's multiple choices to me that are viable and they have puts and takes.
The culture we have right now,
Mm-hmm.
we actually have to physically take out SHA-1 as a hashing algorithm option from the default
Right.
because people would leave it as a default.
Sure.
That's the
Yeah.
culture we're in today.
Mm-hmm.
And we somehow have to make a quantum leap towards a culture where people are making really intelligent choices.
Yeah.
And I would say there's no such thing as a perfectly intelligent choice. It's all, there is a risk base to the choice that you're not going to know ahead of time.
Yeah. And I think this is going to be tough. Like, people have been talking about a number of challenges around PQC. I don't hear anybody talking about this. I don't know that there is the widespread education and knowledge in the many quarters it needs to be in. Even if you're right, even if we take it away from the enterprise and we make it the problem of the technology vendors, which I agree helps, because there's fewer organizations that need to be good at this, and there are organizations that are more inclined to that kind of culture and process anyway. Even then, forcing thousands and tens of thousands of vendors to become best of breed at cryptography, there's just not enough cryptography experts in the world.
There isn't. There isn't. So let's talk about tech that can help you. And you and I talk a lot about the advantages of certificates over raw key pairs.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, the reality of it is that key exchanges and things that have to happen really rapidly might be raw key pairs to the end of time. However, remember, everywhere where you have raw key pairs hard-coded, there is all of a sudden lack of agility.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of certificates, you and I both know, Tim, that you can put policies around certificates, not the least of which is certificate lifespans,
Sure.
which have a big importance.
Yep.
Well, hybrid certificates, right?
Yeah.
We had Yamada Atsushi on this
Mhm.
podcast, and his idea of the hybrid certificate, which he graciously has given to the world, right? It handed over the patents to basically for everybody to use. And I think that there's a lot to be said there about building systems around a hybrid certificate scenario. In other words, today, it would look like take a classic algorithm and
Mhm.
pair it with one of the draft standards of PQC algorithms,
Yep.
and you're good to go.
Right.
You can always fall back on the classic.
But you're saying imagine a future where I have a hybrid cryptography setup that's all PQC.
Right. If it's all PQC, then here's the thing.
Mhm.
Use the hybrid certificate to swap between PQC algorithm choices.
Right.
And therefore, you don't have to then hard code.
Right.
But your underlying system should be able to utilize a hybrid certificate to be able to flip a switch without having to know a lot and be able to move between algorithms. That's crypto agility.
Yeah.
That's a technology that will enable crypto agility. Listeners to this podcast that are very technical would argue with me, yeah, Jay, that might not apply in every scenario. Agreed.
Sure.
But if you can build a system that way, all I'm suggesting is you should.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. So I'm predicting this as one of the challenges that we're going. I don't see any. I think these are good ideas. I think these things help. I think focusing on the technology vendor helps. I think this hybrid crypto agility you're talking about helps. I think they mitigate the problem. I don't think they solve the problem.
Correct.
And it's going to be a challenge no matter what.
Let me rhyme off the three in kind of in real simple terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just don't roll your own crypto. It's don't choose your own crypto.
Yeah.
Number
Okay.
one. It's
All right.
maybe a new saying for us.
There you go.
Number two, crypto agility should be something you seek in every circumstance. And as you say, it might not be entirely possible, but you really, really should if you really want to be doing things well, because I can foresee major problems that can kill your application. Not a problem we've had in the last 30 plus years.
Okay. Yep.
And then look into these technologies and see whether or not they apply to you. And once again, that goes back to point number one, which is don't choose your own crypto. Don't even choose the way in which you employ the crypto.
Yeah.
So full circle, and that's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, this is still a brain burner for me. I think how all this stuff really is going to shape up is almost hard to foresee right now,
It is.
right?
It is. It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting.
And I go back to Bruno's comment about that panic button and the fact that it'll take years. And I agree.
Yeah, it will. Yeah. All right. Well, it'll be interesting. And hopefully we will still be talking about it when the time comes, and we'll tell you what's happening.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Jay. This has been Root Causes.